I sold my land to pay for her father's treatment, but when I lost everything she called me incapable and walked away. I'm writing this because I need to get it out. Because maybe if one person reads this and thinks twice it'll mean something. I don't expect sympathy. I don't deserve it. 3 months ago I was a different man. I owned 40 acres of prime farmland that my grandfather left me. Had a wife who looked at me like I hung the moon. 2 kids who ran to the door when they heard my truck in the driveway. I was their hero. Today I'm typing this in a studio apartment above a laundromat, and my kids won't even take my calls. It started with Sarah's father getting sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The treatments weren't covered by insurance. We're talking $200,000 minimum for experimental therapy that might buy him 6 more months. Sarah broke down crying in our kitchen when we got the news. We have to try everything, she whispered. He's all I have left of my mom. I held her and promised we'd find a way. The land was worth exactly what we needed. My grandfather would understand, right? Family comes first. The sale went through in 6 weeks. Every penny went to the treatment center. Sarah me so hard I thought she'd break my ribs. Or incredible, she said. I can't believe did this for us for 3 months, it felt worth it. Her dad responded better than expected. Sarah was happier than I'd seen her since her mother passed. The kids didn't understand why we had to move to a smaller house, but they adapted. Then the bills started coming. Turns out the treatment center had additional fees they forgot to mention. Lab work, facility charges, specialist consultations, another $50,000 on top of what we'd already paid. I took out loans against our new house, maxed out credit cards, started working 16-hour days at the construction company, taking any overtime they'd give me. Sarah's dad lived 8 more months. 8 good months where he got to see his grandkids graduate elementary school, where we had family dinners again, where Sarah smiled like she used to. When he passed, we were $80,000 in debt. The funeral cost another $15,000. Sarah insisted on the best of everything. He deserves this, she said when I tried to suggest alternatives. After everything done we can't cheap out now. I didn't have the heart to tell her we were broke. The collection calls started 2 weeks after the burial. The mortgage company sent their first warning letter a month later. I was working 20-hour days, falling asleep in my truck between job sites. Sarah found the stack of bills I'd been hiding in my toolbox. The that followed wasn't just loud, it was brutal, surgical. She knew exactly where to make it most. Promised had this handled, she screamed. Said selling the land was enough. How could lie to me about something like this? I didn't lie, I said. I just didn't know about the other costs. Didn't know. Her laugh was sharp enough to draw. Are supposed to be the man of this house. Are supposed to protect us. Instead destroyed everything. I tried to explain about the extra fees, the unexpected charges, the way the medical system works when we're desperate. She wasn't listening. My father is dead, she said, her voice cold as January wind. And now we're losing our house because couldn't handle basic financial planning. Had one job. Take care of family. And failed. The word failed hit me like a sledgehammer. I gave everything for dad, I said. My grandfather's land. My inheritance. Everything my family built. And couldn't even do that right, she back. A capable man would have figured out how to make it work. Would have had backup plans. Would have protected his wife and children. Capable. The word she'd used to destroy me. Over the next weeks, every conversation came back to that word. When I couldn't fix the air conditioner, capable man would know how to do this. When I had to tell the kids we couldn't afford their summer camp, a capable man wouldn't put his family in this position. When the bank called about the mortgage, a capable man would have seen this coming. I started staying later at work. Not because we needed the money anymore, we were too far gone for overtime to matter, but because home felt like a courtroom where I was always guilty. The kids picked on it. My son Tommy, 10 years old, started asking why mommy was always angry. My daughter Lisa, 8, stopped bringing me her drawings to on the refrigerator. Sarah found her opening when I came home exhausted one Tuesday, covered in drywall dust, barely able to stand. Look at, she said. Is this the man I married? The man I thought could provide for his family? I looked in the hallway mirror, saw a stranger, hollow cheeks, dead eyes, work clothes that hadn't been properly washed in weeks because our washing machine was broken and I couldn't afford to fix it. I'm trying, I whispered. No, she said. A capable man would have already fixed this. A capable man would have gotten us into this mess in the first place. That night, she slept in the guest room. The next morning I found her at the kitchen table with coffee and manila folders spread out like she was preparing for war. I've been thinking, she said without looking, maybe we need some space to figure things out. The divorce papers were already printed. She'd been planning this. We can work through this. I'll figure something out. I always do. She finally looked at me and her eyes held nothing. No anger. Nothing at all. No, she said. Won't, because we're not capable of fixing this. Proved that when sold grandfather's land and still couldn't make the numbers work. A real man would have found another way. The papers gave her the house, the kids, everything. I got visitation every other weekend and a list of debts with my name on them. I signed them without reading. What was the point? The kids cried when I packed my truck. Tommy asked if this was his fault. Lisa wanted to know when I was coming home. I didn't have answers that wouldn't break them more than they already were. Sarah stood in the doorway, arms crossed. Maybe this will teach to think things through next time, she said. To consider consequences before making grand gestures. Can't back. I drove away from the only I'd ever wanted, and in my rearview mirror, I watched my children's faces disappear behind the woman who'd once called me her hero. That was 3 months ago. The bills are still coming. The collection calls never stop. I work 7 days a week now and still can't catch. But the worst part isn't the money. It's that she was right. I wasn't capable of protecting them. Wasn't capable of seeing the whole picture before I made the biggest decision of our lives. Wasn't capable of being the man they needed when everything fell apart. I sold my soul to save her father, and when the bill came due, she looked at me like I was nothing and walked away with our children. And the most brutal truth of all, if I had it to do over again, knowing everything I know now, I'd probably make the same choice. Because that's what incapable men do. We love so desperately that we destroy everything we touch. The worst part about losing everything isn't the stuff. It's the silence. My phone used to buzz constantly. Tommy texting me pictures of his homework, Lisa sending me videos of her dancing, Sarah asking me to pick milk on the way home. Now it sits on my nightstand for days without making a sound. The first month after the divorce, I into work like a man possessed. 18-hour days, weekends, holidays. The other guys at the construction site started calling me Ghost. Because I was always the first one there in the morning mist, and the last one to leave when the sun went down. But here's the thing about working too, it doesn't actually the pain, it just postpones it until too tired to it anymore. I'd come home to my studio apartment, heat a frozen dinner, and sit in the dark scrolling through old photos of my family. Sarah laughing at something I'd said. The kids building a snowman in our old backyard. Birthday parties in the house I used to own. The visitation schedule said every other weekend. Reality was different. First missed weekend, Tommy had a soccer tournament. It's important for his development, Sarah said over the phone. Understand. Second missed weekend, Lisa caught a cold. I don't want her getting sicker, Sarah explained. Maybe next time. Third missed weekend, Sarah's sister was visiting from Oregon. The kids barely see their aunt. Family time is precious. No. I knew what was happening. She was erasing me, slowly, systematically. Every excuse reasonable enough that I couldn't without looking petty. When I did get them, it was different. Tommy, my boy who used to follow me around like a shadow, now seemed embarrassed by my tiny apartment. He kept asking when we could go back to the real house. Liza was worse. She'd gotten quiet, careful, like she was walking on ice around me. Are okay, baby girl? I asked her during one visit. She looked at me with those big brown eyes, Sarah's eyes, and said, Mommy says made some bad choices. That's why we can't live together anymore. 10 years old, and already learning that daddy wasn't a hero. Just a man who'd failed when it mattered most. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in November. I'd been fighting with the lawyer about the divorce settlement. Sarah wanted more alimony, claiming she couldn't work full-time because of the kids. My lawyer, a tired-looking man who chain smoked Virginia Slims, told me I didn't have a choice. She's got over a barrel. He said, flicking ash into a coffee mug. Sold marital property without consulting her for the medical bills. Technically, that's grounds for claiming financial misconduct. I was trying to save her father's. I said, judge won't care about noble intentions if can't prove had her explicit written consent for the land sale. Another $800 a month I didn't have. On top of everything else, I left his office feeling like I was drowning in quicksand. Every move I made to fix things just pulled me deeper. That night I called Tommy to tell him I might have to miss his school play. The increased alimony meant I'd have to pick extra shifts. It's okay, Dad, he said, but I could hear the disappointment. Mom said working really hard right now. After I hung, I sat in my truck in the lawyer's parking lot and cried like I hadn't since my own father died. That's when I saw her. Rebecca worked at the diner across the street. I'd noticed her before, hard not to. She had this way of moving that reminded me of Sarah when we were young, confident, graceful, like she knew something the rest of us didn't. She was taking her smoke break, leaning against the brick wall in her uniform, looking at the stars. I should have driven home, should have gone to bed and woken the next morning ready to keep fighting for my family. Instead I got out of my truck. Rough day, she asked when she saw me walking over. Could say that. I tried to smile, but it felt broken on my face. I seen in here before, she said. Always eating alone, always looking like someone stole dog, something like that. She offered me her pack of cigarettes. I hadn't smoked since high school, but I took one anyway. The nicotine hit my lungs like a memory of being young and then thinking I was invincible. Married? She asked. The question hit me like a, was I legally? Barely. Emotionally I'd been divorced the moment Sarah called me incapable. It's complicated, I said. She laughed. Honey, it always is. We stood there smoking in comfortable silence. For the first time in months I felt like I could breathe. Want some coffee? She asked. I get off in 20 minutes. Place stays open all night but it's dead after 10. I should have said no. Should have thanked her and driven to my empty apartment and called it a night. Sure, I said instead. Rebecca wasn't Sarah. She didn't ask probing questions or analyze my answers for hidden meanings. She told jokes that weren't particularly funny but made me laugh anyway. She complained about her manager and her ex-boyfriend and the way the coffee machine never worked right. Normal problems. Manageable problems. We talked until sunrise. About music and movies and places we'd never been but wanted to see. I told her about the construction work, about how satisfying it was to build something with hands. She told me about her dream of opening her own restaurant someday. I didn't mention Sarah, didn't mention the kids, didn't mention the divorce or the debts or the way my had imploded. For 6 hours I got to be someone else. Someone who hadn't failed at the most important job he'd ever had. When the morning shift started filtering in, she walked me to my truck. This was nice, she said. Yeah, it was. Maybe we could do it again sometime. I looked at her standing there in the parking lot, the morning sun catching the highlights in her hair, and I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. I'd like that, I said. That's how it started. Coffee after her shifts, long conversations about nothing important. Text messages that made me smile for the first time since everything fell apart. Rebecca didn't judge me for living in a studio apartment or driving a truck with 200,000 miles on it. She didn't care that I couldn't afford to take her anywhere fancy. She seemed genuinely happy just to spend time with me. With her I remembered what it felt like to be wanted. The guilt was there from the beginning. Every time she laughed at something I said, every time she touched my arm while we were talking, every time she looked at me like I was worth looking at, a voice in my head whispered that this was wrong. But the loneliness was stronger than the guilt. Sarah had made her position clear. I was incapable. A failure, a man who destroyed his family through poor decisions and worse planning. Rebecca saw something different. When I told her about the construction work, she called it impressive. When I mentioned fixing her car's rattling engine, she said I was handy. When I worried about boring her with my problems, she said I was thoughtful. Small words. But when been starving for months, crumbs feel like a feast. The first time she me was on a Thursday night in December. We were sitting in my truck outside her apartment, listening to the radio, and she just leaned over and did it. I should have pulled away. Should have explained about Sarah and the kids and the divorce that wasn't quite final yet. Instead, I her back. I should go inside, she whispered against my lips. Probably, I agreed, but neither of us moved. We sat there in the cab of my truck, her hand on my chest, my heart so hard I was sure she could feel it. I haven't felt like this in a long time, she said. Me neither. Good, she smiled. I was starting to think I was losing my touch. I laughed, and it felt like the first real laugh I'd had in years. When I drove home that night, I felt lighter than I had since before Sarah's dad got sick. Like maybe there was still a future out there somewhere. Like maybe I wasn't completely broken. I should have known it wouldn't last. The next morning Tommy called Dad. Mom said I could ask something. Of course buddy. What's? For the Christmas play we're supposed to bring both parents. To show how families work together. His voice got smaller. But Mom said maybe you're too busy with work stuff. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Sarah wasn't just erasing me from their day to day. She was rewriting the story of who I was to them. I'll be there, I said. Wild horses couldn't keep me away. Promise, I promise. After we hung, I sat in my truck staring at my phone, at Rebecca's last text message, at the reminder I'd set for coffee with her that afternoon. I had a choice to make. I could keep pretending this thing with Rebecca was innocent. Keep telling I deserved happiness after everything I'd lost. Keep believing that what Sarah didn't know wouldn't anyone. Or I could face the truth I was married. Separated maybe. Financially ruined definitely. But still married to the mother of my children. Still responsible for being the kind of man they could be proud of. I stared at that phony minute's thumb hovering over Rebecca's contact. Then I typed, can't make it today. Something came with the kids. She responded immediately, everything okay? I started typing yes, just family stuff but stopped. Because everything wasn't okay. Nothing was okay, and I was about to make it all so much worse. Yeah, I typed back, just family stuff. But even as I sent the message, I knew I was lying to her. To the kids who were counting on me to be their father. The man I'd been before Sarah's dad got sick would have ended it right there. Would have chosen his family over his loneliness, no matter how much it. But I wasn't that man anymore. That man had been capable, and as Sarah had made clear, I was anything but. The thing about secrets is they have weight. The longer carry them, the heavier they get. For 2 months, I lived in 2 worlds. Days belonged to Rebecca's stolen hours at the diner, drives through the countryside, moments where I could pretend I was just a single guy falling for a sweet waitress who made terrible coffee but great conversation. Nights belonged to the guilt, to staring at the ceiling of my studio apartment, thinking about Tommy's Christmas play and Lisa's art projects, and the way Sarah's voice had gone cold when she said I wasn't capable. Rebecca never pushed for more than I could give, never asked why I couldn't stay over or why I never took her to nice places or why I always seemed distracted when my phone buzzed. She should have. Maybe if she demanded answers, I would have been forced to face what I was doing. Instead, she just smiled and said she was happy to take things slow, that she understood I was going through a rough patch. Her patience made it worse. Made me feel like maybe I deserved this small piece of happiness in the wreckage of my. The first in my carefully constructed lie came on a Sunday in February. I was supposed to have the kids for the weekend, but Sarah had cancelled again, something about Lisa having a sleepover she couldn't miss. The 4th cancellation in 6 weeks. Rebecca found me sitting in my truck outside the diner at 3 p.m., not even trying to hide the fact that I was crying. Hey, she said, sliding into the passenger seat, what's wrong? I almost told her everything right then. About Sarah and the kids and divorce papers and the way I'd failed at everything that mattered. Instead I said, just work stuff. She studied my face with those green eyes that saw too much. No can talk to me, right? Whatever it is. I know. She reached over and took my hand. Because sometimes I feel like her carrying something heavy and won't let me help. The kindness in her voice nearly broke me. It's complicated, I said. Most important things are. That night she stayed over for the first time. Not for anything improper, she fell asleep on my couch watching old movies and I couldn't bring to wake her. I watched her sleep and felt something I hadn't felt since before everything fell apart. Peace. Like maybe there was still good in the world. Like maybe I wasn't completely broken. When she woke the next morning she smiled and said, good morning, handsome. No one had called me handsome in over a year. Morning, I said and meant it for the first time in months. That's when my phone rang. Tommy's name on the screen. My heart jumped. He never this early unless something was wrong. His voice was small, scared. What is it, buddy? Liz is in the hospital. She fell off her bike and hit her head. Mom's really upset and she asked me to call. The world tilted. Which hospital? Said Mary's dad. There's and she won't wake and Mom keeps crying. I was already grabbing my keys. I'll be right there. Rebecca was sitting now watching me with concerned eyes. I have to go, I said. Family emergency. Is there anything I can do? No, just, I'll call later. I her forehead without thinking and ran for my truck. The drive to the hospital was the longest 20 minutes of my. Every red light felt like hours. Every slow car in front of me felt like a personal. When I burst through the emergency room doors, Sarah was pacing in the waiting area still in her pajamas, her hair wild. How is she? I asked. She looked at me like she was surprised to see me there. They're doing tests. Possible concussion. They won't tell me anything else. Tommy ran to me and wrapped his arms around my waist. Dad, I was so scared. It's gonna be okay, I said holding him tight. Liz is tough. Remember when she broke her arm and didn't even cry? Yeah, he whispered into my chest. We sat in those uncomfortable plastic chairs for 4 hours. Sarah and I barely spoke, but for the first time since the divorce, we were on the same side. Both terrified parents waiting for news about our little girl. When the doctor finally came out and said Lisa was gonna be fine, mild concussion, overnight observation, no permanent damage, Sarah broke down crying. Without thinking, I put my arms around her. She let me hold her while she sobbed into my shoulder. I was so scared, she whispered. I thought I was going to lose her. She's okay, I said. She's going to be okay. For a moment we were just Tommy and Lisa's parents again. Not the man who'd failed and the woman who'd left him. Just 2 people who loved their children more than anything in the world. Thank for coming so fast. Sarah said when she finally pulled away. Of course, they're my kids too. Something shifted in her expression. I know. I'm sorry I've been making the visitation so difficult. I was just angry. I understand, dude, because I've been thinking maybe we should talk. Really talk. About what went wrong and how we can fix this, for their sake. My heart started racing. Sarah. I know we're a good father, I never should have implied otherwise, and maybe I was too quick to give on us. Maybe we could try counseling or something. The words I'd been praying to hear for months. The olive branch I dreamed about during all those lonely nights in my studio apartment. I'd like that, I said. She smiled for the first time since before her father's diagnosis. Good, we can start fresh. Figure out how to be a family again. That's when my phone buzzed. Rebecca, everything's okay with family. Thinking about, Sarah saw me glance at the phone, saw the way my face changed when I read the message. Who's that? She asked, but her tone said she already knew. Just work, I lied. But Sarah had always been able to read me like a book. Her expression went cold, all the warmth for moments before evaporating like steam. Show me the phone. Sarah, it's not what think. Show me the phone, or I walk out of here right now and never see the kids again. My hands were shaking as I unlocked the screen. The message thread with Rebecca filled with good morning texts and inside jokes and the kind of casual intimacy that only comes from spending time together. Sarah read it all. Every message, every emoji, every miss, and can't wait to see. When she finished, she looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger. Not disgust. While I was fighting to save our marriage, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. While our children were asking me every day when daddy was coming home, we're texting another woman. It's not like that. We never. We're just friends. Friends. She held the phone, pointing to a message from the night before. Friends don't say sleeping next to was the best night I've had in months. The words hung in the air like a sentence. Tommy looked confused. Dad, who's Rebecca? I opened my mouth but no words came out. Rebecca, Sarah said, her voice getting louder. It's the reason daddy can't come home. Because even after he destroyed our family with his bad decisions, he decided to make more bad decisions instead of fighting for us. Sarah, please. Not in front of Tommy. No, she snapped. He should know. He should know that when we needed most, when there was still a chance to save this family, we're with someone else. The other families in the waiting room were staring now. A security guard had started walking our direction. I made a mistake. I said, but nothing happened. Nothing physical. I was just lonely and she was kind to me. Think that makes it better. Sarah's laugh was sharp enough to glass. Think emotional affairs don't count. Think our children don't have a father who chooses them over his own selfish needs. I choose them. I choose. That's what I'm trying to tell Pi. No, she said, standing. Chose feelings and wounded pride over family. Again. She picked her purse and took Tommy's hand. Where are going? I asked. Home. To explain to our son why his father is exactly the kind of man I said he was. Incapable of putting anyone before himself. Can't do this. Lisa needs both of us right now. Lisa needs stability. She needs a parent she can count on. She needs someone who won't abandon her the moment things get difficult. Tommy was crying now, looking back and forth between us like he was watching his world collapse in real time. Please, I said. Give me another chance. I'll end it with Rebecca. We can go to counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. Sarah stopped at the elevator and turned back to me one last time. Want to know the really sad part? She said. I came to the hospital today thinking maybe I'd been maybe deserved another chance. Maybe our family was worth fighting for. The elevator doors opened, but proved me right. When our daughter was in the hospital, when I was ready to forgive everything and start over, we're still thinking about another woman. Still choosing someone else over us. She stepped into the elevator with Tommy. The divorce will be final next month, she said as the door started to close. And I'm filing for full custody. A man who cheats on his wife while his daughter is in the hospital isn't capable of being a father. The doors closed on Tommy's face pressed against the glass, tears streaming down his cheeks, reaching for me as they disappeared from view. I stood there in that hospital corridor for 20 minutes, people walking around me like I was a piece of furniture. Then I drove to Rebecca's apartment. She met me at the door with a smile that died when she saw my face. What happened? Is everything okay with family? My daughter was in an accident. She's fine, but... I couldn't finish the sentence. But what? I looked at this woman who'd been nothing but kind to me. Who'd made me feel human again when I thought I was beyond saving. Who deserved so much better than the broken man standing on her doorstep. I'm married, I said. The words hit her like a physical. She actually took a step backward. What? I'm married. Separated but married. With 2 kids. And I just lost them because of this. Because of us. Rebecca stared at me for a long moment, her face cycling through confusion, and finally anger. Lied to me, she said. I never actually lied. I just didn't tell the whole truth. Who I was going to tell. I just didn't know how. She laughed, but there was no humor and didn't know how to say I'm married. It's pretty straightforward. Don't understand. My wife left me, called me incapable. I lost everything trying to save her father and she hit back in my face. So used me to make feel better. No, it wasn't like that. What we had, she said, was built on lies. Everything told me everything we did together, it was all because we're pretending to be someone or not. I am that person with the real me. The real is a married father who cheats on his wife. She shook her head. Get away from me. Don't call, don't text, don't come to the diner, we're done. The door slammed in my face. I drove home to my studio apartment and sat on my bed staring at my phone. No messages from Sarah. No calls from the kids. No text from Rebecca. Just silence. 3 days later, the custody papers arise in bluffing. Full custody, supervised visitation only. A detailed affidavit describing my pattern of emotional abandonment and infidelity during family crisis. My lawyer called it unwinnable. She's got hospital witnesses who saw checking messages from another woman while daughter was in the ER. Judge won't care about side of the story. I tried calling Tommy. Sarah answered. Please, I said. Let me talk to my son. He doesn't want to talk to right now. He's 10 years old. He doesn't understand. Understands that his father chose a stranger over his family again. It wasn't like that. It's exactly like that. And until can admit it, until can take responsibility for what done without making excuses. We're not the kind of man who should be around my children. The line went dead. That was 6 months ago. I've seen Tommy and Lisa exactly 4 times since then. Awkward 2-hour visits in a supervised facility where a social worker watches every interaction and takes notes. They're different now. Careful around me. Like they're not sure who I am anymore. Tommy asked me once if I loved Rebecca more than I loved him. I said no, of course not. But the question broke something in me that I don't think will ever heal. Lisa draws pictures of our family now, but I'm not in them. Just her and Tommy and Mommy and sometimes Sarah's new boyfriend, a pediatric nurse from the hospital who coaches Tommy's soccer team and takes Lisa to daddy-daughter dances. He's everything I used to be, everything I should have stayed. Capable. Rebecca never came back to the diner. Someone told me she moved to another state. Started over somewhere no one knew her story. Sarah remarried last month. I saw the photos on Facebook before I deleted my account. She looked happy, really happy, like she'd finally found someone who deserved her. The kids called their stepfather dad in the wedding pictures. I'm writing this from the same studio apartment, working the same construction job, paying the same bills that will never quite get paid off. But that's not the real punishment. The real punishment is knowing that every choice I made, selling the land, hiding from my problems, lying to Rebecca, choosing my loneliness over my family, was the wrong one. And I made them all anyway. Sarah was right from the beginning. I wasn't capable of protecting my family, wasn't capable of being the man they needed, wasn't capable of putting anyone else before my own pain. I traded my grandfather's legacy for 8 months with a dying man. I traded my marriage for 3 months with a woman who deserved better than my lies. I traded my children's respect for the temporary comfort of feeling wanted again. And now I'm here alone in a room above a laundromat, writing cautionary tales for strangers on the internet, because the people who used to love me won't return my calls. The worst part isn't that I lost everything. It's that I finally understand what Sarah meant when she called me incapable. She didn't mean I couldn't fix a car or build a house or work long hours. She meant I couldn't choose love over selfishness when it mattered most. And she was absolutely right. If we're reading this and thinking about making the choices I made, let me save the trouble won't win. The land won't save the person you're trying to save. The affair won't heal the loneliness. And when it's all over, when you're sitting alone wondering how destroyed everything ever cared about, I'll finally understand what capable really means. It means choosing family over everything else, even when they can't see how hard you're trying, even when they call a failure, even when the weight of their disappointment feels like it might. I never learned that lesson when it mattered. Now I get to live with the consequences of being exactly the man my wife said I was, someone who destroys everything he touches and calls it love.